All right, we'll bring this meeting to order for January 29th, 2025 of the North Stonington Board of Finance. I'm Mike Anderson, Chairman, Dan Smith, Vice Chair, Sarah Nelson, Carl Johnston, Lou Gingerella, Gary Nino, Amy Friend is alternate, and Winona Burdine is an alternate as well. And it's 7:01. I think we started right at 7. Any public comment? Hearing none, seeing none, we'll move on to the assessor's report.
Good evening. I haven't signed the grand list yet because we're hoping to get a few more dollars on it. We've hired a consultant to try to finish up a few more building permits, but the numbers I'm going to show you tonight, I gotta have that. You're going to need a little more information than what's on the sheet. First, the state legislature were not kind to towns this year. They had a couple of bills that really were impactful, I'll say. The first one was for military that have a permanent and total disability. They now get their house for free. Instead of getting an exemption of $21,000 or so, it has now jumped to whatever the assessment is on your house. The town took a hit of about just under $1.8 million.
Just from that, or
that's assessment numbers, not values, but almost $1.8 million for the disabled vets that live in town that are total and permanent disabled, and that number will rise because there are a number of veterans that their paperwork didn't say that they were totally and permanently disabled, but they claim they were. And my answer is, you have to have the paperwork to show me. And if you don't, it's not that I don't believe you, but the law also says you have to show me the paperwork. So, but I do know it will go up next year. And we're not the only town. I mean, all over. And if you live down in Fairfield, where the houses are around assessment-wise $1 and $2 and $3 million, and you happen to have a permanent and total disability, those are huge hits. The other giant hit that we took, they changed motor vehicles. The way I value a motor vehicle. It used to be, you went to the NADA book, you looked up the vehicle, you took 70%, and you were done. Unfortunately, due to COVID, when new vehicles got hard to get, old vehicles, especially trucks, went up in value. And people got kind of upset and kind of cranked over their state legislature that said, that's not fair. So what the state legislature did in their infinite wisdom is I now price motor vehicles using the manufacturer suggested retail price at the time the car was built. And then they also have a depreciation schedule. First year starts at 15%. So if you have a brand new car, you take the manufacturer suggested retail price, depreciate it by 15%, take 70% of that, that's your due assessment. And then every year after, until you get to the year 17, it goes down by 5%. Once it gets to there, it'll stay there for a couple of years until the car gets to be 20 years old. And then by law, the assessment on the car will be $500. Okay, that was one of the hits we took. The next hit, you know the little travel trailers that you see? Everybody has one. They take it to the transfer station and stuff. Worth a few $1,000s. And half the people in the town own one. Like almost 900 of them. They came off the list. They made them exempt. So anything that's not commercial, that's a class code 11, which is a trailer, is now not on the list.
Is that all trailers or just the utility?
Utility trailers.
So travel trailers are not.
Travel trailers are not. We assess the travel trailers. Again, using manufacturer suggested retail price, the depreciation schedule, and that's how we price it. Okay, so you take a look at your sheet that I gave you.
You can see that we took
About a $12 million decrease in motor vehicles. That's a lot to make up for a small town like North Stonington. Plus almost $1.8 million in real estate we took a hit. Now, let's talk about the good news. The good news is, because of the solar plants and everything, our friends at CLNP did some updates. And if you drove by the transfer stations or the substations and stuff in town, they updated it. And so therefore, personal property did very well this year. Made up for a lot of the bad things that happened. And that's almost totally CLNP. So if you see a $17 million increase in personal property, that's mostly CLNP. Okay. So the whole thing is we got a 1% increase, 1.1% increase. And we may get a few extra dollars. It won't amount to too much. So that's what it was. Any questions? I mean, there's people are still building houses. We're still doing okay, but we can't make up differences for the other things that happen. It's very, very difficult to make up for the differences.
I recall last year we had something to do with the solar panels, and there was a question of how they would be assessed.
We're in court with them.
That's still going on.
Yep, still going on. They think what happens is when they went to this Connecticut Siting Council, they asked to set Connecticut Siting Council for a 5 megawatt solar fields on Boombridge Road. Okay? And it was granted. The name's changed a few times, but it was granted as a 5 megawatt solar fields. There is a state statute that says anything under 2 megawatts, if you have a net metering agreement with a Connecticut State University, then you can be tax exempt. So what they did, or what they're claiming, is they gave it the blessing. And the 5 became 5 1s. And now it's 5 1s, and they have a net metering agreement for a megawatt for 5 different universities. And they're claiming they're exempt. They also did the same thing to Stonington. We're both in court together. You know, it's big money. It's $600,000. I mean, that's real dollars that you guys can spend.
Yes. On that topic, is there something magic about a 5 megawatt threshold?
What do you mean? No, 2 megawatts can be tax exempt if you have a net meter.
I was reading the day last night about one going in on the Stonington Ledyard line,
Yep,
and it's 4.99 megawatts.
right.
And my radar went off.
Yeah, because what they do is they would like to divide them up so they can get these net metering agreements of 1 megawatt. But it has to be a state university. There's UConn, there's Central, there's Southern. All of a sudden you run out. So that's why they're probably trying to keep under 5. But we're doing okay there, you know, I mean, I think what's gonna happen on the solar farms is the state legislature is gonna get involved. And they're gonna say that a megawatt of electricity has a value of $15,000 or $20,000. And then you get the tax from it there. They're gonna set the value, not based on anything about what it costs or what it's, anything else. They're just gonna give them a break that way. But you know,
Are they still paying their taxes while this case is
No.
going on?
nope, and that's against the law too. They're supposed to give us 75% of what they owe us. They haven't given us a nickel.
They're not paying into the court or something like that?
Nope,
How much are we owed?
about 600,000.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
There's
mean,
no,
we have Lloyd, our attorney on the job is Lloyd Langhammer. And he's pretty good.
knows a lot more than I do. Just like what we can't like lien or something like that, given that they haven't paid.
If you lien, you still don't get paid.
Well, we're charging them the interest.
Yes. Yes. And they're not gonna like that either, but we are charging them the interest, 18%. They should pay us, but they think they're gonna win. We don't.
The real solution in say like tenant landlord disputes, you say, I'm not gonna pay my rent because this place is untenable. The court makes you pay into the court while you're fighting it out, rather than not paying anything, it just goes into
The
an escrow
statute
account.
says it's supposed to give us 75%. That's what the law says.
Okay,
That would be another court case, so.
all right.
But
Any other
if-
questions?
If we were to lien them, it would make them less attractive to business or to transact if they were to sell to another corporation. Because they would have to clear those liens.
They would have to clear the liens, right?
Anyway, like, you guys do your thing. I just
Well,
giving you another perspective.
you know, we'll be in court in a few weeks, so.
Okay.
It's getting close.
That, just by way of the way this works out. So that's 600,000 annually that we're due, or is this a multiple year?
I think it's right now it's multiple year. I forgot what it comes out to every year. I didn't write the number down.
So will this have an impact on our collection percentage? Because we project that we're gonna collect 99 or 98%. And so this, when we do our budgeting for this year, should we be projecting bigger, or I should say, a smaller percentage of collection? as a result?
Yeah.
1%.
So we're collecting 18%.
No, we're not collecting anything.
Well, we're not collecting, we're billing 18%.
Oh,
I mean, that's
I hope you win. It's a
that-
great-
that- that's better money than you get in any financial institution right now.
Yeah, but I'm just looking at the number that we use to determine how much we're going to get in, which drives a lot of issues. And if this is a big enough number, that if we traditionally look at collecting 98%, maybe this year we need to look at collecting 97 and see what that does. Thank you.
This number of personal property, does that include the tax you're expected to get from
It
those funds,
includes total personal property on the books,
including,
whether we're getting paid or not.
Can we just get a follow-up with the actual number, the annual number? So we can
Yeah.
account from it from a
Oh,
budget
yeah, I
perspective?
can, I'll let you know. I'll let, Bob know. You know,
Perfect, thank you.
you don't have to know Bob, do you? Yeah, it's probably 200,000 a year. They owe us about 6.
Any other questions?
Not about the solar farm.
Okay.
Can I ask other questions though?
Yes.
So I have just a couple of
Sure.
understanding questions. So on page 3 of this packet, there's a list of real estate grand list by code and number of accounts. So I'm just curious, just one random question, code 700, it says there's 5 accounts that are 10 mil forest. What does that
Yes.
mean?
Penville's Forest is a special program instituted 50 years ago, 55 years ago or so, that allowed people to put their land into a special program, almost like forestry, that they weren't gonna build on it or anything else. And the mill rate would only be 10 mils. No matter what our mill rate is set, it'd only be 10 mils.
So that's different than the current forestry
Yep,
regulation. Okay, that was,
yep.
thanks for that clarification.
It's just, and we only have, well, it says we have 5 properties in the program. We really have 6, but one of them is tax exempt.
Okay,
So there's only 5 that pay taxes, and it's such a small, if you look at the number times 10 mils, it's such a small amount of money. We almost don't get anything out of it.
right. I was just
Yep.
curious what those codes meant. So thank you for that. Then on part 3, this is a personal property codes.
Yep.
And I guess I'm just curious. So this is the one where you said a lot of this was CLNP's upgrades, and there's a line item that's wrote number 22, that's 12 accounts of cables
Yep.
and that, so that's like the CLNP.
Yep.
That's where that line
Yeah,
item is.
that's all the substations,
Okay.
and they have a special code that the state set up for them. So that's basically CLMP.
All right, and on the last page, part 4, so I was trying to reconcile what you had talked about with the change of the total and permanent disability having an impact of 1.8 million, and I'm not seeing those numbers like pop out at me, so I was curious which line item is now referencing that. Is it E? Is it,
The code is
C.
APA,
oh,
the
so it's
state
not even on
code.
here.
so it's probably in code A. The state code is APA.
Okay, so that
Um,
this new code is APA, and that would just show up in code A on,
I believe it's in code A, yes,
okay.
along with the rest of the veterans.
Well, so that's, there's B and C.
See,
are
A
veterans.
means the state of Connecticut doesn't reimburse us. B means they do reimburse us, and
Okay.
C means they reimburse us. So all the A, B, and C are all veterans.
So just for the record, my stepfather is 100% total disability. He's not in this
Did-
town, and I'm glad that he doesn't have to pay
Did
taxes.
he apply?
He absolutely did. I made him go
Is
down
he
the
in
first day.
North Stonington?
No, no.
Okay, but he did know about the new change?
Yeah, but that's a hell of a price to pay to get free taxes. So two
Oh,
purple,
I-
two purple hearts. I think it's fine. So I
Yeah,
want to
Absolutely, but you know.
I want to go back to last year. Sarah, help me remember this. Last year, we made a change to the parameters for one of the is it low income elderly, one of the exemptions. And I was curious if we have quantified what that impact was, because we weren't sure what that was going to be whenever we approved that.
I'm not sure what we're talking about. As far as,
Lou,
We have the committee that we formed to assess whatever changes we need to make, the recommended changes. We expanded the.
yeah,
amount
we
of
expanded
disability,
for the elderly, the income limits
income, yeah.
for the town, we gave them another extra exemption.
Right.
Yes,
So my question was, so when we approved that as a board, we weren't sure what the financial impact was gonna be, and now that we have done that, I was wondering if you have quantified what that financial impact
I
is.
could, I don't know if I did right here,
Okay.
but we definitely know what it is.
If that's something you can just,
Yep.
that would just close the loop on that
So-
conversation and change that we
All right,
made, that would be
Let
helpful.
me write down what you're looking for, and I'll get to Bob. You want to know the town program. Okay,
So it was, we changed the elderly,
no, we
Income.
increased the
Yeah.
elderly exemption for town residents above the state threshold.
yes.
Yes. And I'll try to get you the dollar amount.
Thank you.
Is that it? Any other requests that you, for additional information?
So bottom line is we got
1%.
1%, which is account amounts for 6,852,680.
Yeah, 628,000,000, 830.
Yeah.
629,818,728 is the grand list.
But that's not realized with the 600,000 that's still outstanding. So it's minus.
What do you mean, 600?
We haven't collected that,
We haven't collected any of this.
but that's what we're gonna have to end up collecting. That's what I'm saying. We're not gonna collect it until they actually close out that lawsuit.
But this
Right.
is,
The assessment.
It's not 600, it's 200.
It's 200,000 a year for 3 years. They haven't paid us for 3 years. We're getting real close to getting a settlement in court.
All right. It's, yeah, there's nothing to do. We're gonna talk about that, obviously, when they talk about the revenue side of the budget. Any questions for Darrell?
Okay, have a nice evening.
Thank you. Board of Ed.
Hi, everyone. I have, as requested, brought Troy and Kathy with me so that they can answer your questions a little more specifically. Did everyone get the financial reports and the new year-end forecast? Troy
Yes.
emailed it out to each of you individually.
Yes.
Okay. I think maybe the best thing to do is just have Troy and Kathy come up. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And then I will, I'll just let you ask them questions.
Thank you both for being here.
If you don't mind, I'd like to just have an opening comment.
Perfect. Perfect.
As you probably are noticing, we have a shift of philosophy or approach to budgeting. With Kathy now with us, I think you'll see a lot more attention to detail and, specifics and more accurate numbers. And Kathy is doing a great job, which is a pleasure to work with, and I think we're in good shape regarding school business management.
It appears that way. Yes, we're pretty happy. I guess, Kathy, you do projections. Why don't you just take us through what you've done and how that kind of impacts us?
Great. So in order to forecast and to become familiar with each of the accounts, we've really dug into them. And I think last month when we spoke to you, we were forecasting to be within budget, but only about 47,000. Since last month, we've seen some improvements where we're now forecasting that will be favorable to budget by 97,000. And the two items that really impact us are special education tuition, which is budgeted at 100,000, and we're forecasting for about 55,000. Now, that's very fluid. We're doing the budget for next year, and it's going to be above 100,000. So it's very dependent on, the here and now of the needs of the children. But for this fiscal year, that should be a savings about $45,000. And then this year for fiscal services, legal expenses, and other fees, we budgeted 31,000, and we're only forecasting 5,000. So favorability of 26,000. So between last month and this month, where some things go up, some go down, but these two larger items or two are good, we're forecasting more favorable. That makes sense. And we're going to keep monitoring it. We update our forecast for every payroll to make sure that we reach out, we ask questions, and we're trying to stay as much on top of it as we can. And I think, I think Troy said I'm a little bit anal, and I am. I think I heard that. I do tend to look into things probably too much, but hey.
Rather have that than the other.
So that's our forecast for next year, for this year. Any questions regarding that?
So we have the North Stonington Board of Education summary from 15 of January. That's what you're talking about, where we have a positive variance
Yes.
overall?
Yep.
You were just confusing me with some of your numbers. I didn't see like 55 or 45. And
Oh,
Is that-
that's as compared to last month. Last month we had we were forecasting a favorable variance of off the top of my head 45,000 or something similar. So we've increased that favorable variance by the difference between the 97.
okay. So generally speaking, this year, we're gonna have enough money to cover the budget and then some. Is what you're forecasting.
Yes, assuming that there's nothing that jumps out at us, yes.
Okay. And the North Stonington Business Manager's monthly report. Can you kind of take us through that?
Sure. Are you looking at the full year forecast versus budget? Oh, you're just looking at the narrative.
Yes,
Okay,
the
understood.
narrative.
Okay, sure. Salaries are favorable to budget by 158,000, and I detailed the numbers for us.
Oh, okay, all right, I got you. When I
and-
see things are parentheses around,
Yeah.
I'm thinking we're in the red.
Salaries are unfavorable to budget. No, you're right. I read that. Mark.
The full year forecast is 10.3. And the budget is 10.2. So that is an unfavorable variance.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I said no, I meant unfavorable variance. It says salaries are unfavorable to budget by 158,000.
Okay,
And you can see the reasons why we added 2 additional positions, and Troy can talk through the details of each of these line items. Substitute teachers, unfavorable by 30,000. However, that was a long-term maternity sub. Things like that happen. Summer school, we had summer school for regular summer school. We had only budgeted for special ed. We hired another person in alternative education at a slightly higher salary. It was a last minute hire. Some of those things you can see they're all detailed there, but they add up real quick. It is offset a little bit by the technology position, where we had our director leave mid-year, and we're now using Learn, which shows up in a different line.
all right, so what if we add all these bullet points
Yep.
up, that gets us to the 124, 484 negative variance?
Correct.
Okay,
And then we apply the grants against that and work it.
okay. I got you.
And we keep going through it. Okay.
Everyone understand?
Yeah. So we're just gonna move on to something besides salaries?
Sure, yep.
Yeah.
Before we roll up salaries, are all the positions filled or are we taking the benefit of an unfilled position?
No, they're all filled.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thought in the previous conversation, I thought we had a para position that wasn't filled yet.
So
Yep.
it's a little more complicated. We had to add a para position that wasn't budgeted, but now since one para is left, and we haven't filled that.
Okay.
Again, so that was a bit of a.
Net zero, got it, thanks.
Can, Sarah, go ahead.
No, you go first.
So the December report said that salaries were unfavorable to budget 112,000. And the new report says salaries are unfavorable to budget 158,000. Can you tell me what that walk is?
I would have to go back and look at exactly what was in December and then what was in January to be sure. But I will say that as I continue to rake through this, you'll see little, blips like that where I'm trying to make sure that I'm putting the stipends in the proper line. Of these stipends in December were broken out, but in January, I put them in this with salaries, so that would be 30,000.
So I guess just overall, my initial comment is in December, we thought we were going to be favorable 46,000. And now we're saying we think we might be favorable 97,000, which is roughly 100% increase. And that makes me nervous that in February we could be at zero. So I think what would be helpful, at least for me, I'm just speaking for myself, is how we went from the 46 to the 97, and then specifically on the salary, since that seems to be the biggest driver.
Well, I'm sorry, on the salary, I think the difference is stipends were excluded from salaries last month, and this month I moved them in. So when I think of stipends, I think of coaches and outside people or independent contractors, and they're not, they're actually employees. So I put those in the salary line for January. That's gonna be a difference.
So I've got a $36,000 difference from last month, and the stipends are $5,000. So you don't have to solve this here. Just for future reference, a walk would be helpful. And I try not to be a skeptic, but
Yeah, don't be a skeptic.
a variance from month to month, I mean, it's double, right? So I just help me get comfortable with that and help me understand why the salaries are even more unfavorable now whenever you're saying stipends and I see $5,000. So
Can I jump in here for a second?
absolutely.
We obviously at the Board of Ed meeting, we talked about that as well. And one of the things that became clear, and Kathy actually helped us with this at the meeting, that as she continues, like she said, to rake through, she's finding things that we didn't really know about. So this month, she really dug into that salary line and was really going through. And one of the things that we recognized is that while we did have a need for that para position that we didn't know about and we had to hire, we also had one para position that was funded by the ESSER grant previously. And of course, that ESSER grant's gone. And so in the budget, we didn't put it in the budget. We didn't absorb it back into our budget, but that ESSER funding was gone. And so in reality, it's absorbed into our budget. And so when you see that 2 additional positions, one of those people were employed by us already. They were just not being funded out of our general budget. And now they are, and that wasn't included. So things like that, I think, are the things that Kathy is sort of stumbling on.
But to your point, I'm happy to bridge, A to B so that you don't have that doubt.
One of the other things that we noticed was that we have something that says a favorable variance in bus transportation as the result of using one less bus than last year. You'll see that on the second page of that narrative. So if you recall during budget season, that's something that we talked about, and we were really excited about doing that. But in reality, that money wasn't backed out of our budget. So all year we've had one less bus, but we budgeted for that one less bus in our budget, which again is going to lead to now us being more favorable at the end of the year. So these are the things that Kathy is discovering. And so I was nervous too, Winona, about how did we look $49,000 in the positive, and then 1 month later we're $100,000 in the positive. I'm terrified, right, that in another month, like you said, we're zero or negative. But I think as Kathy moves through, she's catching these things and she's able to find some stable numbers.
I think the difficult part has been to go back to a budget that I didn't build and to try to compare actuals against it, because I'm guessing what's in that budget number. I mean, to some degree, it's common sense what you think would be in there, but I didn't build the budget. And I don't think there's anything wrong with the budget. Let me be clear. I think it's fine. However, I can't say, hey, Lou wasn't in the budget, but Dan was. I don't know that. So some of these things I'm guessing at. And I could be totally wrong, but I'm trying to make a logical assumption as I explain a variance to a budget that I didn't build. But again, I don't think there's anything wrong with the way this budget was built. It's just I don't have the detail of it. I wasn't the next of it.
I'm just gonna make an observation to the board. You don't have to respond to this. It feels very much like the decisions that were made around the budget, like we all said, X money was gonna get cut out of the budget. You're just using Stephanie's example of the bus, but the budget itself didn't get updated to it. So while the overall number was accurate, this is why we have so many fields that are red and the other ones that are like largely underspent. I know I sound like a broken record. It really helps us as a board to understand, like, if you're not done with your research phase, like if we understand how long this process is going to take and when you feel like you're going to get to full, like, get your arms, it will help us. We know, right? Okay, for the month of February, we're still going to be a little nervous. We're not going to trust every under overage, but like you have this plan to get to resolution by March 1st. I'm making up dates, right? But like it helps us to put into perspective what you're sharing so that we know what kind of context to take it in, whether it's a grain of salt or it's like, oh, we feel very confident about this. So that would be, again, don't have to respond tonight, but that would be very helpful. And then I think to Winona's point, the narrative is super helpful. If the formatting stays the same from report to report, that will help us be able to track and follow it as well.
I will say that I've been doing this for 4 years, so I'm not a spring chicken. However, I've only been here for 6 months. And it takes a lot longer than 6 months to understand how a $15 million municipality works. So it will take me the better part of a year or two to feel comfortable with what's going on here and to, by the end of this fiscal year, I have to own this. And I respect that and I will do that. I'm going to keep digging things out. I'm not going to get it done in 6 months. 12 months is pretty good. It's going to be a while. When I first got out of school and I had a job, I have no idea what I'm doing this. 3 years later, I go, oh, that makes sense. It's one of those things where as you start to understand the mechanics of things a little bit better and how this town works, I will feel more confident. You will feel more confident. But I feel very strongly that I have the more than the basic knowledge of how to do accounting and finance to do it correctly. And that eventually you'll feel that way.
One thing, thank you for being here, is if, I don't know, you haven't been here long enough, but if we can just get consistency with the reporting format, as Sarah said, and I think so that when we are following reports from month to month, they're matching up. We haven't always received the reports, but then when we received them, it was pretty choppy in how they were consistently formatted. So that would really help us and prevent us from questioning so much.
So we're trying to get to a point with the finance committee of the Board of Ed that our reports are useful, where it's not just 10 million numbers that we're all staring at. We're trying to break them out between salaries and benefits and so forth, so that there is that consistency from month to month. So I appreciate that because I feel the same way. I want to see this and this and this. I don't want 12 different things. So, yeah.
To that point with the formatting. What we're looking at here, the salary, the benefits, those are all expensive. And the typical presentation of that would be opposite of what we have here.
Yeah, so I'm used to favorable, unfavorable, and if you want me to change it to increase, decrease, or over, under,
No,
What I'm
the
getting at
brackets and the reds are backwards for those of us
Right.
that are out of the business world.
Right,
Which some of us are, we can mentally adapt when we open yours, but when we first open it, our heads explode. Because red is not good.
All right,
I'm not
fair
mentally
enough.
adapting. It really, because this way, if you just look at this really quickly, it looks, when you're just looking at that variance, it's looking like you're under budget on that first line by $64 million. And you're not, you're over budget.
Right, it's
Salary.
unfavorable, right?
So that, and I think if you just, well,
I'll put it any way you folks would like.
if you just reverse the columns, which is the protocol that is typical in business, then that works.
Do you want smiley faces?
I would disagree.
I don't-
I
I've
spent
never-
20 years in
I've-
this.
I've mentally wrestled with this, and it's really the Board of Education's call and ours to adapt to as
Yeah.
opposed to us asking.
Thank you.
Well, I'll respectfully disagree. in
Okay.
that This presentation does not reflect accurately, given the way it's looking. If anybody looking at this would take a quick look and say, wow, we're really under budget. And that is an inconsistent presentation. So we'll take exception that, to me, I'd like to see financial statements that I can readily understand and follow protocol. Universal.
Noted.
Go ahead, one.
So I know this isn't the time to counter stuff, but I specifically remember having that conversation about the pair coming back out of the ERISA account. So for us to now hear that that didn't make it from ERISA into the budget, that's an interesting spin.
I agree. It was confusing. And in fact, Christine Wagner went back and pulled the list from last year because she kept saying, this doesn't make sense. There's too many. And then Troy, I think you were the one who figured it out and said, no, we always had that many positions, but it was never added back into the budget. So the great news, I think, this year, and what's really positive, is that Kathy is building the budget. And so as she moves some of these numbers around, I think, Kathy, you did some stuff that really made sense in terms of that some of our technology stuff, our software that we had all lumped together. She's moved some of that into instructional supplies because we're not buying books like we used to buy instructional books. Now we buy software. So she's put that where it belongs, and she's been moving things where it's going to make sense. And when she's building this budget this year, the budget will make sense, and it will also be in Kathy's language. So when she's talking to us about it, it's something that she wrote. So I know that this is hard to see. I just want to sort of set the vision that this is Kathy is working backwards to explain to us what happened, and we're going to do our best to move forward and build a better budget this year. But I just don't want Kathy to be held accountable for something that she's really not responsible for.
So while Stephanie has the mic, and to try to make peace with my brother Lou, can the Board of Education consider switching the sign convention so we're all,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Got it.
We certainly can talk about it, and maybe Kathy can explain it better than I can explain it to the board.
So I see a lot of red, just like everyone, I know it's a triggering thing to some people around here. I see a lot of red, and it's not up to format. We're to the postmortem portion of this, where how did this budget get built so far out in the left field where the numbers just don't jive. You've got line after line after line after line after line after line. We have, we always talk about electricity. We always talk about all these other items in here. And we always have a good excuse why it's gone awry. But there's a lot of line items in here that have gone awry. It was the last budget based on estimates, actuals, hopes. What was this budget based off of that was presented to us that we fully funded last year? And why did it go so awry? And I find it very hard. You had a chunk of money, it got moved around in all these different places. You're doing a great job moving them back into the right spots and everything. But you still were given a big chunk of money that was all over the place. And it doesn't seem like A plus B equals C. Because we're still left with, basically, if you take away the grants, you guys are in the red. I'm saying, if you took away these grants that we're oh, no, I'm talking to I'm talking to the three, and whoever wants to grab the mic can do that.
Let me say as I will never speak poorly of the person that was before me. I think every accountant has a different philosophy of how they do budgeting. And I've worked in corporate America. I've worked in education. Sometimes you get into a situation with the Board of Ed or the Board of Finance where they're like, you got to cut 200,000. And you basically go, okay, fine. And you cut it, but you don't really know where you're cutting it. You just know that your bottom line is 15.4. And frankly, if I weren't here, I believe that the person that came before me, you would see numbers shifted to make sure that they're in the right bucket. Even, the budget in total would still be in total, but they'd be different line items. To me, it's a philosophy. I don't do that. I'm budgeting by line so that when you come to me and go, well, why are we over? I can say, because you paid Kathy Trammell 200 grand and you shouldn't have.
Totally get that, Kathy. I'm just asking, and this is probably to Troy and Steph, how did this budget get built from last year? During the tri-board, I brought up the question, how do you build the budget? Does it go from department heads to the principal, to Troy, then to the Board of Ed? How does that all process work? Because somewhere the numbers got skewed because we did not cut the budget for the Board of Ed last year. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, you did.
We did.
Some thousand. And then remember I found $156,000 mistake.
All right.
And they still cut it.
And you still
Right.
cut it.
Yeah, you still cut it 80 something.
How-
To answer your question, it really goes along with what I said in the beginning, and what Kathy was just saying about a different philosophy or approach to budgeting. We did follow, typical budgeting procedures last year to an extent of getting the information from the principals, what do they need, that type of thing. For supplies, computer software, all of that. Parts of the budget, though, because some of the budget was built too late in the year. And as you know, we were kind of scrambling to find some backup documentation at times to answer questions. Okay, you remember that. Partly because we waited a little bit too long to get the big parts of the budget done, like the supplies, materials, that's a small piece of the pie. That the salaries and benefits, all of that's huge. That's most of the budget. And I think the approach was to kind of look at what was spent last year and to say, okay, well, we probably need that much this year. And also knowing that we were saving significant dollars in special education. So we ended up with a 1.79% increase, which was really tremendous compared to other towns, in terms of Board of Ed budget increases. So I think it really comes down to a different approach where I think there was more last year estimation than this year when we're building the budget. It's more accurate. We're looking at more detail, exactly what we're going to need. And I think coming off a few years of having COVID money hitting the grants, I think kind of promoted that philosophy of, oh, it's all gonna work out. We're gonna have that, and, yeah, we could definitely fund another para. Like, we didn't put it in the budget, apparently, right? So even though we said we would, so that there was some of that. A lot of it, I was not aware of a lot of this estimation going on. Okay, but now we're discovering some things as we go through and work through this budget, learning lessons from this year to then apply those lessons to the next year's budget. So hopefully we have a solid budget next year that we can rely on. So that's my best answer at the moment.
Kathy spoke briefly about philosophy, and she actually went into that with the finance committee a couple of weeks ago. And she talked about, because we reacted to all the red too. It's this line, the next line, it's so much red, and it looks just so terribly inaccurate. And what Kathy tells me is that that's how some people do budgets, right? One pot of money and like, yep, this here, this here, this here. But like, if we don't really need that, we'll put it over here. And it's not really how we want to do budgeting. We as a board are not terribly comfortable with that. That's not how we used to do it. If you think back a long time ago, we used to talk about line item transfers. So we never looked at the pot of money philosophy. I think we learned over the past 2 years that we don't love that pot of money philosophy, and it makes us all really uncomfortable. Kathy's not a one pot of money philosopher. And I think that's why when we're looking at this stuff, and she's really using actuals, and she's projecting out to the end of the year in actuals, she's just showing us the result of really putting everything where it needs to be. But she keeps reminding us that even though it makes us uncomfortable, we're going to finish this year okay. And that's not how next year's budget is going to be built. She doesn't subscribe to that philosophy, even though she assures me that it's okay, that one is okay, and it is widely used. We are not going to continue to use it here.
I think this way, it actually offers more transparency.
Mhm,
It feels very
absolutely.
uncomfortable right now, but likely in past years, they were just shifting money between line items, so they never really looked
So-
too.
Kathy did offer us that
So,
insight as well.
so that, all right, so the shifting of money, that was the other question. Who shifts the money right now? We have a line item on the Board of Ed budget. I need to move 5K over to this line item. Who does that?
We're not, we're showing it as a variance, and that's why you're seeing it this way. We're not, I'm not going to the Board of Ed and saying, hey, I need to move from medical insurance to XYZ so that our budget looks better. I'm saying, nope, let it fall the way it is, and we'll explain it.
So you're running if you had to run a shortfall on a line item, you let it run a
I would
shortfall
let
on
it
that.
run- Right, because then I'll know for next year, that I better do a better job budgeting.
Love it.
All right, you're right. It triggered off in your head.
So
I get- I
So,
think
so
it's-
how it,
You're paying those bills.
Yes.
Because he's talking about. where the money
yeah,
comes
yeah,
from.
yeah,
So
yeah.
I'm saying, so the money, you've paid these bills, salaries are.
Yep.
And so your question. I think,
So
is
it's like
how
Bob.
do you move the money
If
from the-
if Bob had to go pay a bill, he can't just move line items to go over and pay bills because he's overspent on a line item, and you can't do that. How does the Board of Education or / education department does that?
So once
No, I'm not that happy.
once the budget's approved,
What's the budget? We approve the Bob, his budget by line item.
Correct.
To the school department.
We-
We
dollar
approve
amount.
Total dollar amount.
Correct.
and It's at the discretion of.
Who?
The superintendent and the.
But
the Board of
See,
Ed.
this is where I'm going with it. It's like, who on that, if I have to move money over here, or is it, once again, the pot of money?
the superintendent of schools, once the budget is approved, has total reign over his budget. He doesn't have to come to the Board of Ed and say, Board of Ed, we have to spend this additional amount of money because we have bill that's more expensive than we anticipated, or I'm going to make a purchase of this new software system. Troy often reports to us when something like that happens, but he doesn't have to come to us for permission. The only thing he has to ask us permission for is to utilize the non-lapsing account. Other than that, once that budget is passed, it's the superintendent's budget to operate.
I think it's at their discretion to do either approach though. So I know what you're saying.
Because there's no real, like Bob's got a checks and balance. He needs to move stuff out. He asks us, we move stuff around. There is no check and balance on the Board of Ed budget.
It's a different state statute.
It's a different state statute. I get it. We approve a
Yeah.
total dollar amount. However, there's a lot of red on this, and just by grants, they're being made whole.
But we budget for those grants, Stan.
Yeah,
We have,
But still, there's a lot of red.
but we wouldn't be able to run our school district without, it's like
I'm
saying
not
that we
saying-
would without our ECS money. It's baked into the pie. That's how we administer our education. So we don't budget and then like cross our fingers and hope that those grants come through. Those are grants
Then
that we
after
get.
watching the Board of Ed meetings and everything, then there is no issue because everything's baked into the pie. And we don't have any issue because you guys are going to come back with a large chunk of money.
I would say the biggest issue, if you were to do a look back, is that after we had a year like we had, and we had some really large unexpected bills, that at the end of this year, we are still going to come, we're projected to be positive $100,000. And so to me, that's the problematic part, right? Not that we have a shortfall, but because of all the estimation and because of some of the small mistakes, right? So we forgot to budget for that para, but we forgot to take out the money for the bus that we did away with. So those small mistakes are the things I think as we're doing a look back that we have to be more accurate. And I think that that's what Kathy is doing.
Correct.
And Troy's doing is he's building this budget along with Kathy is that it's not, oh my God, where did the money go? Right now for me, it's, after all of this chaos, we're still ending up okay. And that's become my new
Yeah,
concern
we really shouldn't have the chaos. That's
for
where I'm
sure.
going
And
with
I
that.
think we're
there's-
moving out of chaos.
Good.
I think part of this this was always happening. Kathy's just being more transparent about it.
Yes, absolutely.
And I like this path
Yes.
forward because I do like the idea of, you said you were going to spend $10,000 on supplies, you spent $30,000 on supplies. And
Yeah.
I would imagine when it's not so much of it red, right? Like in the next budget, we'll get variance notes and we'll be able to understand, well, we knew we were coming in under on another line item, so we chose to buy supplies they needed.
Mhm.
I feel like it helps us. So I agree with you. Like we agree. I do like this process better.
Yeah, Kathy's approach or method. Yeah, I like the method. Kathy method is much more transparent to what this board, I'm sure that we can all, I won't speak for everybody, but is what we would want is much more transparency to see exactly where the money is going.
If there's no other questions, I'll just wrap this up.
I said it once before, and it would be nice, I know it's a stretch goal, you got a lot on your plate, Kathy, but it would be nice in the next year's budget updates if we got committed. So you got budget, how much is committed or encumbered, POs left? Because then we know where the true, okay, thanks.
Board of Ed is scheduled to come to us with their budget for the first time on March 13th. How are we looking on that?
Troy and I talked about it today, and I think we're looking good. And if we have to pop in an extra meeting for us to get that done, we're prepared to do that.
Okay. And just to echo Dan's point, I think and Sarah's, this process allows that process to be much more accurate and, much more concrete as the year goes on. I would like to say, when you're looking at these positions, and we talked about special ed and the increased costs that we were gonna have this year in last year's budget. And, just to clarify, it wasn't out of the discipline, it was out of one of the other grants that para was being paid, and then she wasn't being paid when that grant left. But, we need to know exactly the staff that you're gonna need, that you think you're gonna need. Because there's a lot of red in this, but to me, there's a lot of small numbers that used to be covered up in the big budget, and you used to do the big budget way. Your big numbers are, almost $100,000 in positions, and the maintenance number and the utilities number, those are the big nuts that we need to get a handle on for this year.
I do want to draw your attention to that electricity cost narrative. Carly, you had asked a couple of times about solar, and Kathy really did a deep dive into trying to figure out why our bill has gotten so high and what is the return on that solar. She did a really great job. So she's explained some of it here.
I will explain a little bit there, and we are getting credit for the solar, and I looked over a 3-year period and talked to a gentleman at something, and he explained to me how they net it, and then asked if they could break it out so we could see it moving forward. But then as I went back and looked at the Eversource, and as you all know from television, all of that tax for the millstone and the help the neighbor during COVID thing, that's what killed us this year. That's really a large impact. So it'll be interesting to see if the legislature rolls that back, because right now we're budgeting flat with this year for electricity, which is higher than our budget. So it'll be interesting to see what the Connecticut legislature says about that extra.
3.33 cents
So
for every kilowatt hour.
And I hate to rain on Daryl's parade, but the fact that the personal property for CLMP went up means it's only going to fall on the rate base. So it's going to continue.
So the rate that we're paying, obviously you're not paying a commercial rate. You're paying nonprofit person, like a home rate.
And that's that I thought they'd probably be able to do better because he's going to inspect more fees.
Because I think on the on-demand meters, there is not, that charge isn't on there. That property tax. So,
We have that charge, so.
so to try and save money by putting yourself on them meters without having to pay the on-demand money, they're hammering you the backside with the person.
Yeah.
That was Carl Johnson. Yeah.
The budget presentation. With all of these line items, this is what we get. Would it be possible to get a summary that looks like this? And where we can see this full year forecast, full year budget, and then the budget for next year in the exact same format?
Yes, and that's actually, we've done the superintendent's budget with the Board of Ed for the first time and gave them both a summary. And
Right, I mean, this is great detail, and I think we really need to see this. This summary really helps to see the big picture, I think, a lot better.
Anything further?
I just want to say thank you to Kathy. We're glad you're here. Appreciate it.
Thank you, guys. Okay, Bob, you have an appropriation request from the fire company.
Yeah, we're all warmed up.
I was gonna say, since I have such a minimum role in this meeting, can I clarify a couple of things that Daryl talked about? No, maybe a little more than he does on some of those things.
Absolutely.
All right, so first of all, on the veterans exemption. So that's permanent and totally disabled. And the legislature, it was a nonpartisan bill last year that passed almost 100% up in Hartford. And what it was Kathy,
Austin.
Kathy Austin, it was her bill, she sponsored it. And they went to Veterans Association and said, how many are these, how many people in each town will qualify for this? And we said, they said, no, somebody would have 2. We now have 16 and counting. They said New London would have 2. New London has 56 and counting. All 169 cities and towns have many more than the Veterans Association said. So when they said the state would be a $4.8 million to the state as a whole, Southeastern Connecticut's already over 4.8 if we look at all the neighboring towns. So our legislature is going to, like we talked to Heather Summers, Greg Howard, and so on. They're going up to Hartford, and one of the first things is this, and they're going to try to put a 1-year pause on this. The problem is when someone thinks that they're getting something, like my owner's relatives, then you say now you're not getting it for a year. So that's the sticky part of this. But as far as the financial part, they're trying to put a 1-year pause because they didn't do their due diligence. There's no minimum as far as what you can make. So there's not a minimum income that was never set. There's people that live in very expensive homes that make very expensive six-figure wages that qualify. Now, I can't say what the price would be if I lost my pinky, but it doesn't make me 100% disabled, but the Veterans Association says it does. I could still work without this, but I wouldn't even know how to put a price on this, right? So if it gets the 1-year hold and it goes into effect next year with some more parameters on it, whether it be value of your home, if you're actually able to work, what your income level is, and so on, then this will not affect us as much. But we won't know that until, I mean, this is a long session. That's not just a short session. So we might not know this until the budget has been passed. So that's one thing. On the solar lawsuits, so the same company that did the one on Lewis Farm on Boombridge, they did the one on Tagawalk and Stonington. They're the ones that we are suing us. And I'm working with Jen Lineweaver, who's a very talented assessor in Stonington. In fact, she's so talented, they just made her the head of the association, the Assessors Association. She believes that before we got involved in this, I said, do we have a chance to win this? And she said, yeah, without a doubt, we can win this. Well, here it is, the company, and I won't mention the name, that did the other 2 solar farms is now doing one on Germany Hill Road. The driveway is in North Stonington, but the farm is totally in Stonington. And as you just said in the paper, 12,000 panel solar farm on the ledge of Stonington line. All the same company. So it's not, is it a coincidence now they're coming back and they want to kind of settle and negotiate how to handle what they owe us is $600,000 roughly, which is $200,000 a year for 3 years, and they owe Stonington about the same. So now all of a sudden they want to negotiate because they don't want to be in court both on Germany Hill Road and the newer one. We told them, fine, we'll talk. First, pay you what you owe us, and then we'll talk about monitoring the future and coming up with a plan for the future. So it's we all know what you're paying. He mentioned the state's looking at maybe a 12,000, maybe 15,000 per megawatt plan. So everybody's paying the same, so it's not up to the town. Mill rates are different in each town. So, but before we say that, we said pay what you owe us. That's a non-starter for us to say, no, we'll forget what you owe us and then move on to the future. So that's that. As far as the 75% they would pay us, the bad thing was if they did pay us 75% for the last 3 years and we lost, we'd have to pay that back. So that would be a big hit to the town if we would have to then pay that back. I'm sure we wouldn't just be escrowing that. Good news on your question about, well, maybe it was Dan's on, if we don't collect that 200,000, how does it go into the collection percentage? I think Zane's tracking about 98% right now. So she's tracking pretty well, and 200,000, when you're talking about the entire tax base in town, doesn't move the needle that much. 600,000 will move a little bit more, but it's only 200,000 a year. Not that that's a small number, but it's not, she's still in that 98% range, okay? And he mentioned the solar farms, they're not taxed if they're under 3 megawatt. So they have one in Boombridge is saying they're 2, 2, and 1, not 1, 1, 1, 1, they're 2, 2, and 1. And they supply 3 colleges. So that's where we are with that.
So just a refresher, the one on 184 up towards
Gold Cove Ranch, they're paying 100% of what that.
Yeah, so they have plans to expand to another one on the other side of the road. We have our eyes on that, right?
So you can have your eyes on it, but the agreement is that they weren't going to do that. That was the agreement with the town. And the siting council knows that that was an agreement. So we can go back to the siting council and we can say, we know that negotiated them not to do that, and now they're reneging on that. So
Yes,
And they're not paying tax on the one they put in.
they are paying tax.
Oh,
on
they
it.
are.
Yeah,
Okay.
fully taxed.
Got it. That's
The
what I
other one
wondered.
on Ella Wheeler was also paying tax at 19.5 megawatt.
Yeah.
But the two first selectmen ago cut a deal and they pay, I think, 103,000 a year. If that deal wasn't cut, it probably would have been closer to 200,000 a year. But that was done 6 or 7 years ago, 8 years ago. Okay.
I'm turning my mic off. Thank you.
Okay. So if there's any other questions about what Darrell is doing, that's where we are with that. So it's actually not as bad news. The car tax is not great. But if you think about 2 years ago, we had that big windfall because all the used cars and used trucks are so expensive. We thought, oh, this is great. We have all this extra money. Taxpayers didn't like it because we were getting bills. But the good news is that we got it. But now 2 years later, now they're making the adjustment. It's a 1 year adjustment, and next year we'll be working off of this year. So we won't notice it just this 1 year. We're all taking a hit. All 169 cities and towns are taking a hit. I don't know if this, I mentioned the staff. As far as I'm going off my lane here with the Board of Education. But December had 9 or 10 non-working days. I know because my wife's a para. She said, I can't wait to go back to work so I get a paycheck. They didn't get paid. So I'm wondering in December, if none of the paras are getting paid and none of the substitute teachers are getting paid because they don't get paid when they're not working. I wonder if that kind of deflated some of those numbers in December. Because you had 9 working days that they weren't working, before Christmas and all the way to New Year's. Again, I'm not sure if that's the answer, but I know that my wife went back in January and got a paycheck. So could be an answer. I'm not sure if it's that simple, but all right. Now to what I actually came for. So I gave you it's an appropriation as we did. It's the first one of 2025. Hopefully it's one of only a few, but it's for $7,134. When the fire company told us they were buying the truck and they mentioned they're going to have extra money, and they already came in front of this board, by the way, needed extra money to outfit that truck. And they came to you, and I think we said it was around $23,000, and somehow we rounded it to 25 that evening, and you guys approved it. The next day, I said to the chief, okay, but I want an invoice and everything you buy. I don't know where it went. I want to see all the invoices, all the quotes. And he said, well, maybe I should give you the 25,000 back, and we'll just let's go out and see what it actually costs, and just give us that. So that's where we are here. So it's a lot less than the 25,000 that was previously approved, but this is to outfit the new service truck. And we sold, and Gary likes to hear this, we sold the old service truck. And that was I think we sold that for like around $15,000 to $16,000. It was the biggest item we sold in that auction. So that was a good thing.
It actually sold for $18,000, but there was a $2,000 buyer's premium on it. You guys did great. Keep it up.
Okay. Well, I had not a lot to thank Alan for that because it wasn't a lot to do with me. Alan and Susan, actually, Suzanne. Okay, so that's where we are. I'm asking for this. If you approve it tonight, I have to have Mike sign it, give it to Melissa, she'll put it in, and then these things will show up on your budget. On that line in your budget, it says, was it a transfer or an appropriation? It's the third line over. So you start seeing these in the budget again, what we have done in the past. We start talking about our budget on the February 4th, which is next Tuesday, and then we come to you on the 5th to listen to, and your calendar is not quite right because we switched the rec's coming on the 5th, and the fire company's moving to the 19th, so they're on the same night as the Amos Association, because they figured they have some of the same things they talk about. And I called today and I asked Sarah Valancourt, who's asking for a fairly good size ask for the given closet. It's a first time ask, and it's a good size number. If she would come and do a presentation, so she's going to also present on the 5th.
That woman's a saint.
Huh?
So Sarah's a saint.
Okay.
I got a quick question.
Yep.
Okay, so the total of page 3 and 4 equals your 4240.
Yes.
Then the first page has 1,098.47. There's $1,795.53 difference. That's the page on it?
I might have. I'm sure. When I know it was line out, it came to $7,134. So I might have, when I copied the pages, I might have missed one.
But you have a rough idea what it's for.
There's a $105 invoice in here.
That's added to the last page. That makes the 4240. 41, 135 plus the 150 or whatever it is, 105, comes up to 4240, which he already paid. And he's looking to cover finished upfitting of 2894. He has all the reflective taping and stuff.
You saw the 1,098.47.
Right, that's, I subtracted that from the 2894.
If I am short, I can either see if I missed something, or I can ask the chief what it is that we're missing, or if
Sure.
I'm misreading this.
It would just be nice what they got.
Yeah, I can see if we can find another page for it. I don't know. What's the exact number?
I'm gonna write something on the back.
What's the exact number?
1795.53. Anybody else discussion?
Yeah, hey, Bob, how many quotes did they get for all, everything here?
We've told them to get 3 quotes. So in some cases they get 2. If they try to get a quote and they don't have enough manufacturers that make something, they might only get 2, they might not get 3. But
Yeah.
they fall under the purchasing policy just like everyone else does.
Okay, and they met that purchasing
Yes.
policy for you guys?
Just a quick, volunteer fire department and not for profit. Yes, but so they're not for profit, they do have, they can put money into an account that they get from the cellular tower, and they also get money from the fairground when they work on the fair, during summer.
But they're a 501c3 or
I think they are, a little bit, I'm not sure. I know that the ambulance is, I'm not sure about the fire number.
that's a 501c3.
I'm pretty sure it is, yep. I know it is actually.
Can you explain, when you started, you said that we had done an appropriation for 25,000?
Yeah, so I think it was like 3 months ago, maybe. I came in and we asked, and the chief was here, and he spoke on it himself and said that he would need approximately 23, it's around 23 and change to outfit the truck. And then he said, but if you gave me 25 and there's anything left over, we would give it back. I sent him an email next day saying exactly that. I want to see all the invoices, all the quotes. And then if there is money left over, yes, you can't keep it. It has to go back. You can only buy what you say you're gonna buy. You know, I don't know why there was a change in philosophy, but we got the 25,000 back, went back into the undesignated fund, never really came out. And then this is what they gave me for outfitting the service truck. So I don't know why there's a philosophy change or why there's a big difference in what he mentioned that night and what we actually had. And it's only a pickup truck. So. You could, when they come and they present their budget, that could be a question you could ask the chief directly.
Anyone else?
So where did that $25,000 go? I guess that's where I'm stuck because I don't see that it's,
It was an appropriation that would have come out of the undesignated fund, but before I had a chance to go out, it stayed in.
okay, so it never came out
never
because I didn't
voted.
see the 25,000 come back in. That's what I
Never
was,
came out and never, right, exactly.
okay, that makes
Yeah,
sense.
it's not on our undesignated sheet that we have.
Correct, that's what I didn't.
Good point.
notice.
I was wondering that originally, but then you said it never even came out, so I figured.
So Bob, they're saying that basically, they depleted their, was it operating budget?
Say that again?
They were saying something in here, I just saw it. They were saying that they want the reimbursement as quickly as possible. Their current apparatus maintenance line item is almost depleted. They took that money out already.
Right, they paid the bottom too. If you notice, it says paid on it.
Yeah,
So he's looking to get that money back to cover that.
yep,
And then he's looking for the money to cover the decals, which he got quotes on.
yep.
And then $1,700 of the state.
So in the regular budget, there is monies that we give them to do some of this work. And this
Mhm.
particular truck, when he bought it, if you remember, we budgeted 50,000 and it came right around 50,000, which originally should have been the outfitting also, but the truck went up in price. We
Yeah,
said, we can still buy the truck, we won't have money to put the uplifting on it, which is what it came for here.
was that the one that they wanted to get a plow for also?
Yep.
And I thought they got the truck with the plow.
No, we decided that, so the plan was that
that the truck would go to the town in 5 years and they would get another truck.
Yeah,
And basically, the town says, we really don't want a 5-year used truck. We'll get our own truck when we need it, because that truck should last 30 years.
so we
So
were,
why take one of their trucks every 5 years if we don't need it?
so even without the plow package and everything, they still couldn't outfit that truck with the amount of money that was given to buy that truck. But originally how it was proposed was they were gonna buy the truck with the
Truck.
plow and outfit it for a certain price. If they
Right,
weren't gonna
and
get
when
it
they
with,
Found out it went up higher, they said, we'll buy the truck, we'll take it out of our budget to upfit.
okay. I'm just trying to remember,
They said.
yeah, I'm just trying to remember what. Maybe Gary remembers something different.
It's all getting foggy, but I will tell you that the price of new trucks has gone through the roof, so I'm not
So,
surprised that
not
they were
surprised.
surprised. Smart move not getting the snowplow for the truck. Unfortunate that they had to fund it out of a different account just to get the thing on the road and working, but we are where we are, and 7,000 is a lot better than 25,000.
Yeah. I'm just trying to wrap my head around
I understand.
from point A to point B to point C.
I move to approve moving $7,134 from the undesignated fund to give to the North Stonington Volunteer Fire Company for the
Second.
service truck upfitting.
I was
Read the room.
I was like, go ahead, Zach, go ahead.
I saw her reaching out of the corner of my eye. I'll let you adjourn. How's that?
I heard Sarah.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 0.
Thank you. Mike, at the end of the meeting, we just signed this one.
Bob? Review of minutes. We have minutes from our January 15th meeting. Thank you, Amy.
Make a motion to approve the meeting minutes from January 15th as written.
Second. That was the minutes cleanup meeting.
Mm-hmm.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions?
I abstain, I wasn't there.
All right, 501 with Gary abstaining. Any public comment? I'll just take this time. On Monday, I was nominated to become a workers' compensation judge by Ned Lamont. And I'm in the process of trying to find out from the ethics board whether or not I can be on this board or if I'm approved by the legislature. And it's not looking good, according to the chairman of the workers' comp. Yeah,
You might need him one day. Oh, not you, Gary.
We have to go in front of the nominating committee for the judiciary. And that will probably be in mid to late February. And then they vote you out to go to the whole what you call House of Reps and the Senate to be voted on there. And once they vote, if you get a yay vote, you're a judge. And I would probably start maybe 2 weeks after that. So April, I'm gonna try to stretch this thing out as long as possible. If I mean, they think, the powers that be think if you're the judge in the Superior Court, you definitely have to, their ethics rules are very clear. Workers' comp is an executive branch, it's an administrative law judge. It's through the executive branch. But everybody that's gone up, most of them have been involved in town politics in one way or the other. They've all resigned. But I will get a definitive word. And believe me, if there's any way I can stay on this board, I will.
They gonna do a background check?
They did a background check.
They didn't contact.
The FBI background check.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Yeah, it's very exciting. It's a big honor. So I'll keep you guys posted.
Makes that picture on that bus really special.
Rip it down. Yeah. But if I do have to go, I'm gonna miss the hell out of you guys. But that's all my public comment.
Can't just extend that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, that'd be nice.
I mean, yeah. Like I said, I'll keep you guys posted. Hopefully, we'll get through the majority of this together if this does have to happen, so. Hopefully we'll be in good shape. Next meeting, I'm just gonna sit in the audience and send. Because we had to change our January meetings, we have back-to-back meetings so we have meeting next Wednesday, and then we'll be back onto our normal schedule. Except for March, which will be hell week, hell month. Motion to adjourn.
Second.